All right, ladies and gentlemen, so today we're going to be doing some more work with our linear regressions, and this is all calculator stuff. So if you don't have your calculator, stop the video right now and go and get it. All right, so some vocabulary as a review a little bit. So a trend line is a line that models the data points. The line of best fit is a more precise trend line found using the calculator. All right, this is also called a linear regression. Now, our calculators are also smart enough to give us something called a correlation coefficient, which is given the letter R. I don't know why, but it is. And it is telling us how close the equation that it came up with is good at modeling the data, which is going to let us know how good is it at predicting. The closer this number is to -1 or +1, and that all depends on is it a negative correlation or a positive correlation. That's all that means. The closer you can get to those numbers, the better off your equation is at predicting. All right, so now I need you to do some things on your calculator. So before we do anything, you're going to need to clear your calculator to set all the settings back to the default. And these are literally the buttons that you hit. All right, so take a second and do that. And you're also going to have to turn on something called your diagnostic setting. Otherwise, it's not going to give you the R value. So, and these are the directions for that. So again, pause to do that. And then we'll go into how we can see all these things and so on. But anyway, so get that done and then come back and we're going to do some equations here. All right, so the Boston Marathon has been run every year since 1897. The number of entrants every 5 years since 1975 is shown below. So what I'm going to do is in order to get this equation, I have to put it into my calculator. The problem is that these years are too big. If I try to do that and put it into your calculator, it's not going to work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with whatever year they give me. I'm going to call year 0. That's my starting point. And then this is going to be, the next numbers are going to be how many years after that. So 1980 is 5 years after, 85 is 10, 90 is 15, 20, 25, and 30. So we're going to do, remember this is where we do our stat and edit. This is going to be list 1. These numbers are going to be list 2. All right, so take a second, put those into your calculator. All right, so if you need to pause, you're going to pause. After you have those entered, then you're going to do stat, calculate, and it's choice number 4, linear regression. And what that's going to do now, you might have to hit enter a few times, but that's now going to give you, right, it should look like this on your screen. It's going to say y equals ax plus b. It's telling you the general form. That's a linear equation. Then it's going to tell you that a is equal to 591.3428571. It should show you that b is 1201.285714. And then you're going to now see this R value, which you didn't see before because we didn't have that diagnostic on. All right, this R value, that's our new vocabulary word. That's our correlation coefficient. And we'll talk about that in a second. Okay. So this is, now if you were doing this on an exam question, a test question, this is what I would need to see in terms of doing your work. And then you're going to write your equation, and they want it rounded to the nearest, to the nearest thousandth. So my equation, I'm going to take out a and b, and I'm going to put these numbers in. So this is 591.343x plus 1201.286. There's my equation. This R means, right, it's 0.95. That means it's very close to 1. So that means that there's a very strong positive, just because it's positive number, correlation. Which means my equation is going to be very good at predicting or giving me actual numbers. All right, so now let's actually use the equation. So according to the equation, how many entrants were there in 2003? Well, again, I'm not going to enter 2003. I will find the page again. There we go. All right, I'm not going to enter 2003. I have to enter 2003 is 3 years after this, so that means X is really 28. All right, so what is that going to be then? So start with your equation, 591.343 times 28 plus 1201.286. So Y is then going to be 17757. I rounded to the nearest tenth, but that's still, right? You can't have 0.7 of a person. So that means there were 17,758 people. About, right? It's a prediction. We don't have the actual number. Okay. Now remember, that's an example from yesterday using our vocabulary words of interpolation because it's in between data points. Now we're going to have an extrapolation because we want to know for 2010. Well, that means X is going to be 35 years. So I'm going to do my equation, 591.343 times 35 plus 1201. I'm just going to write it as 0.3 because I ran out of room. So that's going to give me 21896.8, which means it's really 21,897 people. And the reason we can round up is because we're approximating. This is not a for sure, this is how many people there definitely were. Okay, let's take another look at our example. So here we're talking about the tallest building and the number of stories, and we're ranking them first, second, third. So this is going to be your L1, which is your X values. This is going to be L2, which is your Y. So I want you to take a minute, you have to clear out the old lists, and then enter these. All right, and if you need a little bit of time, go right ahead and do that. Pause the video. When we do it though, this time they're asking everything for the nearest tenth. So on my screen, I'm getting Y equals AX plus B. You should get A equals negative 2.751. And B is 102.53, repeating. And this time, my correlation coefficient is negative because it's a negative slope, negative 0.60714. Well, I still haven't written it as the equation. So the equation, I'm going to put A in where it belongs, to the nearest tenth, so negative 2.8. X plus 102.5. State and interpret the correlation coefficient. So R is, they want it to the nearest thousandth, negative 0.607. This means there's a moderate, right? If you're around somewhere around the 0.5, it's moderate. Obviously the 0.9s are, are very strong. So moderately strong negative correlation. All right, now we're going to predict the number of stories that the 13th tallest building has. So that's telling me that this X is 13. And we're going to use our equation. So we're going to have negative 2.8 times 13 plus 102.5. That was the radio station I was listening to, by the way. Which is going to give you 66.1, which means the 13th tallest building would have approximately 66 stories. Right? And stories not as in, once upon a time stories. Obviously, story means the number of floors. Okay, any questions? Bring them to class, but we have to start learning how to use those calculators. Have a good night, guys.